Hello, everyone. Today is March 25th. I'm Willie.
And I'm Brian.
And we are Shooting the Shift. And did anything go on this past week?
No, I think it was very quiet.
Did you think of anything?
Like, no.
Was there?
Oh, yeah.
Formula One is back.
Yes.
And Forza Ferrari is back, taking first place in the Australian Grand Prix. And you know what? I can't help but to think that they've been listening to the podcast.
I think so. We're not huge, but the right person listened to us for the past couple weeks. And
Arriva Bene, who's the team principal for Ferrari, for sure was listening to the podcast, because what other inspiration would they need or can they get from anybody else but us to give them that power to, although it was a strategic win, a win nonetheless.
You can't really call it a win by default because they were doing pretty damn well throughout second and third, and they qualified pretty well as well. So
yeah. All in all, Australian Grand Prix was. It feels like we've been waiting. Like we've been hanging out somewhere in a cave in the mountain, waiting for winter to pass for Formula One to be back. And yeah, we've been watching all week. Usually the Formula One week, if you guys don't know, it starts out pretty much from Wednesday to Sunday. So you get the team principals press conference, then you get the drivers press conference. Then Friday you have 2 practices. Saturday you have free practice 3, qualifying, and then Sunday is the race. So it is an entire week of amazingness.
Or if you're there in person, it's about 5 days of partying.
Yes. It's a good time.
Especially in Australia.
So we're enjoying our Italian inspired spritzes. Even though we're sporting I'm sporting my favorite team, Mercedes Petronas F1, our American team HAAS F1, who was doing decently, and we'll actually get into that later on in the show. So we can unfortunately, it's part of our But Why segment. Yeah,
that's fine. Let's leave all the meat on the bone for the end. All right.
And we'll go ahead and start off with the spicy team principals press conference.
Yep.
Which typically are not spicy whatsoever. They're actually quite boring. But on this particular one, Christian Horner and Maurizio Arrivabene. Maurizio Arrivabene is the team principal for Scuderia Ferrari. Christian Horner is the team principal for the now Aston Martin Red Bull, sporting the Tag Heuer, or the Renault rebranded as a Tag Heuer engine.
A lot of changes this season for sure. A lot of changes.
They had the Tag Heuer engine yesterday, last year, but there was there's something called the strategy group in Formula One. Mm-hmm. What is the strategy group? The strategy group is basically all the Formula One teams get together at certain times before the season and during the season to discuss topics relating F1. Mm-hmm. Typically, regulations, budgets, all kinds of different things that get set out for each season. 6 weeks ago, they had a strategy group meeting in which they discussed Formula One teams hiring FIA or people who had worked for the FIA previously, and how they would handle Formula One teams that wanted to hire members of the FIA. The FIA, if you don't know, is the governing body of Formula One. Formula One is actually the promotional.
It's the White House, basically.
Is the actual promoter of the sport is Formula One. FIA is the one that creates all the regulations and keeps everybody in line. So it's a symbiotic relationship that they have.
Right.
And they're each in charge of. They have different roles that they're in charge of. So in the strategy group, they had discussed a team that had, I believe it was Renault, that had hired an FIA member who was the leading technical director of the FIA. Now, why would people feel a certain way about a Formula One team hiring somebody who was the FIA director or the technical FIA director? Because this person is in charge of writing the regulations for Formula One. They actually get to see what every Formula One team has to offer, how they implement certain things, make sure each car is in regulation. So you could see why somebody would feel some type of way about them hiring.
So in a sense, kind of like insider trading. More or less.
Kind of. So what was discussed in the meeting was that there should be a cure period when they hire one of these FIA members, which Ferrari specifically had requested it should be 3 years. There was discussions as to whether it would be 1 year. Ferrari lobbied for 3. And then 6 weeks later, Ferrari hires the man who was in charge of developing the Halo system, which is the head protection device that you'll see now on Formula One cars that looks like a sandal.
The sandal.
It makes it look kind of
that's what it is.
It looks like all the cars have a Havaiana on top of them.
Oh yeah, very fast Havaianas.
Correct. So Ferrari. So just to get the timeline correct, Ferrari 6 weeks ago lobbied for 3 years if a team was going to hire this type of person from the FIA. 6 weeks after that meeting, it was all teams agreed that it should be at a minimum 1 year. Okay. It was a verbal agreement. There was no contract. There was no paperwork.
Not even a handshake.
There was no handshake. It was a quote unquote gentleman's agreement, right?
Oh, okay.
Ferrari goes out and hires this guy that basically created the Halo, knows all the ins and outs of the Halo, knows how each team has installed it, developed it, everything.
Right.
So they hire this guy, and then they say, "Well, don't worry, he's not going to work for us for 6 months." So the team that lobbied for a 3-year cure period is giving their new employee 6 months.
Wow.
So Christian Horner was visibly irritated by this. In the press conference, there was an exchange, which was it was a good time for us, obviously. And that's basically what went on with that. So there's obviously in motorsport, people are always trying to get an edge, whatever the edge is. Ferrari didn't do anything wrong. It just looks really bad that they were asking for 3 years, and then they're only making their guy cure 6 months.
For most of you at home who kind of feel that anything motorsport related, whether it be NASCAR or whatever, but Formula One being one of the biggest, it's not boring. There's a lot of drama, not like Jerry Springer drama, but kind of. There's like a little sprinkle there. Guys get heated about cutting off each other, and team leaders start being a little bit shady and spicy towards each other. So it's definitely a show within a week. So hence why we're so excited at being back.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on in the background. It's a very technical sport. It's the pinnacle of motorsport. A lot of the development that goes on in Formula One later on, you see passed down into the road cars. So you do see this technology eventually make its way down to the cars.
I'm actually glad you brought up the whole thing going on in the background, because our next topic has something to do with that.
Yes. Another issue that went on during the race, Hamilton loses out to Vettel due to a software glitch over at Mercedes. As we all know, this is a team sport. It's not just up to the driver. Hopefully, I'm Team LH.
He's hurt.
I'm Team Lewis Hamilton.
You could see just the physical and emotional toll.
You know why I'm not that mad about it is because I know that it wasn't the car, and I know that it wasn't the driver. It was somebody behind a screen or a piece of software that messed up, and they lost the race.
Let's be honest. What it was the heads, or the gentlemen and women that are in charge of Ferrari's team, saying there is two guys in Miami that keep hating on us, and I had it. Okay, we need to re-strategize and get it together.
So they sent Mercedes-AMG an email that had a virus, and then it messed up their software. That could be.
It messed up the algorithms.
That's possible.
Okay?
Sounds like a good headline to me.
And
Yeah. So Lewis Hamilton unfortunately lost out to Sebastian Vettel. Great for Ferrari. Great start.
Great
Gives them
strategy.
A good. It's a fantastic strategy. I mean, and what's important is that Vettel they did their homework. Vettel later said they had actually discussed this in their pre-race briefings. They had actually gone over this, that if a virtual safety car did come out, that they would do this if they were within a certain window of time, and that's what they did, and it worked out.
And you could also see the expression of frustration from Lewis's radio communication, because he thought it was something he did. It obviously wasn't, which Sir Wolf clarified after the race. He was a little bit frustrated why Vettel was ahead of him when Vettel cleared the pits. So it's definitely something, it is the first race. It is, in my eyes, it's something that sets the tone for the season. So let's see. I mean, I hope they get everything together for the next race in 2 weeks. But it was definitely disappointing seeing such a vast lead by a couple seconds, and now having to be second place. But congratulations, Ferrari.
Yeah, and Bottas, obviously. I mean, the final podium positions it was a Ferrari sandwich. It was
correct.
It was first place Sebastian Vettel, second place Lewis Hamilton, third place Kimi Räikkönen. Bottas was nowhere near them because I don't know what his issue was today, but I know he had a horrible weekend. They basically had to rebuild his car after he crashed during qualifying. And they had to rebuild his car. I'm sure that played into the setup, and he probably didn't feel comfortable in the car. That's why he did so horribly.
But he wasn't, he picked up. He was somewhere in the teens when everybody kind of took off, and he picked up. At some point, I believe he was 8th, something like that. So it's definitely heartbreaking, but we do have hope that Mercedes get back on their high horse. But it's good to see some competition finally.
And then, speaking of people, teams listening, I know they listen in. I know they may not talk about it, but I know they're listening in. Because another team also, or another driver in specific that we talked about before actually did very well. Alonso, hombre!
Pues hombre!
Hostia! Tío, quinto lugar, tío! He just
impressive.
He obviously capitalized off of both HAAS cars retiring.
Yes.
Realistically, he would have been 7th had those two cars still been in the race. But still, I mean, both cars in the points, both cars finished. Let me repeat that: both McLarens finished.
They have points now. They're getting points.
So, I mean, they're checking a bunch of boxes on race 1, which is awesome. That just means teams are going to be more competitive, like Alonso says. We're going to see the Red Bulls were a little bit closer to the Ferraris.
This is true.
We had the Haas's giving the Red Bulls a hard time, which was awesome to see.
That was very well.
So it just seems like everything. It seems like basically, for the most part, everybody was pretty close today, which was awesome.
A lot of changes, which is what we need in this sport, because we can't sit down and watch a race that we've been waiting months for, and just all right, well, Lewis is going to win or Mercedes is going to win. So we're seeing a lot of competition, a lot of position changing, and it's exciting. It really is. No, and there's a lot of teams that have a lot to celebrate for. I mean, to be honest, race 1, we didn't have a lot of DNFs due to engine failures, which is good. Which is another one of the biggest changes this season in the regulations is they last year each team had 4 engines or 4 power units that they could use throughout a season. Before they start getting penalized. Right.
So if they went over the 4, they would start to get different types of grid penalties depending on how many more engines they used. Now they have 3, which, we hope that the engines are more reliable and they won't go over. But chances are is we're going to see a lot of grid penalties because of people using more engines.
Yeah.
Just because they took one out. I don't know what the exact reasoning is, if they're trying to spice up the racing a little bit or mix it up by taking an engine out, because then teams will get penalized more.
I think they're trying to make these teams strategize even more to try and, we saw today, once Hamilton figured, that Vettel had this, it was, I think, lap 53 of 58. And he he's just like, all right, well, I'm just gonna hold second to save this engine for a day of battle. So so you're gonna see a lot of that during the season, particularly because they can't just go balls to the walls anymore, and just if the engine goes, we got another one. So there's definitely a lot of implementation of rules to kind of make them a little bit more conservative towards their equipment, and I'm sure the tires and all that stuff as well. That being said, we have a new genre of tire as well, the Hypersoft.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
once
to mix it up even more. I mean,
yeah.
as a fan, I don't like that they're trying to use grid penalties to mix it up.
Right.
I think they should focus their energy on maybe making these engines, which has been discussed in the past, making these engines less expensive.
Right.
So because the conversation is, the engines are so expensive. So the reason we don't just let them just use as many engines as they want every season is because it puts the smaller teams at a disadvantage because they don't have the money to buy as many engines.
Correct.
So this is, where the FIA and Formula One work together to come up with something that works for everybody to level the playing field a little bit.
Right.
Because obviously in an ideal world, we would want them to just race. Don't worry about how much fuel you have. Don't worry about how many engines you have. Don't worry about tires. Just go until the damn thing just burns down, basically. So, but it's such a complicated sport, and they are trying to be as green as possible, which was the whole reason they went into the V6 turbo. They limited the amount of fuel they could use per race.
Right.
Which is, I care for the environment, so I understand and I get it. But at the same time, this is motorsport. It's a race. It's not a car that's being daily driven every day, that's polluting every day.
No.
They go out and they race for 3 days and they don't race for another week or two.
Right.
So,
I think honestly they're going to keep with every season adding more tires so they run out of colors.
Yeah, they're gonna have.
Come on,
or it could be like you remember in Mario Kart, you would hit the box and then it would go through like a kind of like a slot machine, like and then you would kind of boop, and then Hypersoft.
We're just gonna see basically a rainbow for the opener of I don't know what year for the season, but it's just gonna be a set of like 22 tires in different colors, and one's gonna be a rainbow. I'm like, just I don't know.
Yeah, that's
hyper hard.
That's a surprise when you put it on and you're not sure.
You don't know what it
is.
It's
hard, soft, super soft. So
I think it's time to move it on to a little bit more. Is it depressing news?
Well, we're segueing into an engine that used to be in McLaren, so it's kind of Honda. What is happening? I think at some point we're in season 4, I believe now. Honda being back in Formula One, season 3 or 4.
Yes.
At some point they got to call it a day. I mean, like it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. I mean, how? Like at what point does Honda say? And the reason I'm saying this is if you guys don't know the results of the race, they were down position. I want to say. Torro Rosso, Honda is now with Torro Rosso, who used to have Renault engines.
Right.
So
now it's the other way around.
Now we know what the issue was at McLaren Honda. It was not McLaren.
It was also not the drivers.
It was not the drivers. So. It was Honda. Yeah. Because now Torro Rosso, who used to enjoy the positions that McLaren got this weekend, is now at the back of the pack, and they actually had one car that did not finish or had a DNF due to an engine failure. So that puts them already down one engine. They got 2 more for 21 races.
There is a pattern.
Yeah. So it's clear the issue is Honda. My question is, when do they call it a day?
When the bean counters say so, I guess.
Honda has endless money, and to be honest, Honda does well in other motorsports. I mean, they can hold their head up high, and say they had the Senna days with the MP44 where they dominated. at that particular time or point in time. And they do very well in MotoGP. They do very well in other motorsports. So you don't have to win them all, but they need to figure out what their exit strategy is going to be, because it's getting a little embarrassing.
I think they're having a very serious problem with the moving with the times situation. So they can't, because give them V12 capabilities or V10 capabilities, and they're probably going to do well, but I don't think they're doing too well in this setting for Formula One, because back in the day they were slapping people back and forth left and right, but we're obviously in a little bit more of a futuristic stage of the sport, and they need to kind of get it together, or like you said, they just need to. I don't see them leaving Formula One. I mean, I know I think in Indy they do pretty well, but they're definitely going to be something to stay for a while. They just need to adjust to what is going on as far as the new engines, the new regulations, and all that stuff. So now it's not looking too well for them.
I mean, in reality, the regulations really haven't changed much since they've been back. I mean, the regulations have been very similar. There hasn't been any big regulation changes. So if they haven't gotten it now, they're not going to get it. I mean, it is what it is.
Hopefully they'll listen to us like Ferrari did.
No.
Why not?
I mean, they got a lot of listening to do. So, I mean, I don't know how to build a V6 turbo Formula One engine and make it work. To be honest, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I do know that after 4 seasons, I'd probably think we just don't got it. We don't have it. Like, we just don't have it.
But maybe I don't know, because like if you take basketball for instance, the Knicks, I mean, they still play.
That's true.
So I think maybe it's like the Knicks of Formula One.
But they also only occupy one race team in Formula One, as opposed to everyone else who's
so sure.
If they had 3 or 4 race teams, then maybe. But the thing is, nobody wants to take a chance with them because
what's going on? Yeah, they're
setting because they suck.
Yeah, they're setting an awful example for expansion.
No, they just need to They need to say, okay, if we don't get it by year 6, we're out, because that's it. Like, how much more are you going to do? How much more testing are you going to do? How many tens of millions of dollars are you going to spend trying to get an engine right?
Right.
I mean, that's money that they could use. I don't know, catering corporate events or something, or anything,
or better
Honda commercials,
better promo commercials.
There you
that
go.
Was just. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of like just shoving an Indy star and then trying to sell cars or whatnot. So just fucking work on it, Honda. Jesus. Get it together, man.
Make it work. I mean, it's disappointing. We want to see.
What are you guys doing over there?
We want to see as many engine suppliers. It's just
it's always good to see the underdogs, come up. Like, we're super happy for Alonso. He's doing well, and the HAAS duo as well, who they were doing well. Well, we'll get into that a little bit later, but yeah, they're definitely it's good to see something other than Mercedes or Red Bull or even Ferrari up at the top. So we're seeing a lot of changes now, and hopefully throughout the races that are to come, we'll see new refreshing faces on the podium.
Well, this past week was the legendary Ayrton Senna's birthday.
Yeah. Our
Our head-to-head has to deal with the MP44, which is McLaren's legendary Honda-powered engine, or Formula One car, versus the V6 era, another turbocharged Mercedes Formula One car, both dominating at different times.
Yeah.
Both turbocharged.
Yes.
And both V6, because at one point the MP44 switched to a V6 turbo as well. Obviously, V6 single turbo back then with a crazy amount of lag. This is a more advanced hybrid system.
Right.
V6 turbo, but also has a turbo-like energy recovery system that uses exhaust gas to recover energy for the battery pack, which gives them an additional overtake boost every once in a while. They use brake regenerating and the turbo regenerating for the battery pack.
It's definitely it's a good setup we got this week, because it gives you insight on old technology and what was accessible to manufacturers and things in that day, and what we have to deal with now. So it's definitely something to see. I'd like to see, honestly, just both of them go really head to head on the track just to see what's up. Because
it was very, very raw. I mean, the MP44 was a very raw race car.
Yeah.
Obviously they both have advantages and disadvantages.
Correct.
That car had very low downforce, a lot of power. You had to let go of the steering wheel to shift.
Yes.
Which, when you're going certain speeds, you don't want to have to do that. It makes the type of person that's driving more special because they can do all those things and still handle a car like that. That's what made the drivers of those generations so special. And the fact that almost every driving seat or almost every race season, somebody died. So they knew that
virtually the cars of Senna's era were, I don't want to say undrivable. There was extreme difficulty because you were essentially the only thing that was in control of the car. Basically, there was no the suspension wasn't really advanced. A lot of the computing from the engine itself wasn't really advanced. So you had minimal things that we see now heavily influenced into the technology in the new cars. The best way I can compare it to people who think I'm talking Japanese right now is the days of you having cars like 70s and 80s with no power steering, and now the ease of things like that, little small things like the power steering, braking systems and stuff like that. So it's definitely an eye opener because those cars from Senna's era and your Alain Prost and these giants we're definitely going through a lot of difficulty to race. I'm not discrediting the gentleman now racing, but it was definitely something to see back in the day as far as technology and how far we've come in the racing world as far as the cars and their evolution.
Yeah. Again, they're two amazing cars, to be honest. I mean, in their own right.
Yeah.
McLaren did the best job back then with the regulations that they had. Mercedes is doing the best job right now, with the exception of today, with the with the regulations that they have.
Right.
But I'm leaning towards, I'm leaning MP44. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge Senna fan, and it seems like the rawness of those cars, not discrediting any drivers right now driving in Formula One, because to be able to drive those cars, the shape that those racing drivers have to be in. I mean, most of them are extreme athletes, triathletes. I mean, they're in crazy shape to take the amount of G-forces that those cars give your body. So not discrediting them at all, but it just seems, and a lot of the Formula One drivers agree, the ones that are in the younger ones now,
right?
They call that the golden era of racing.
Yeah.
Just because of the rawness of the car. I think actually Lewis Hamilton drove the MP44. There's a video on YouTube of it, and we'll show you a little clip of it on the YouTube form of the podcast. And yeah, just the emotion when he drives it, when he gets out, it's just it's all smiles.
Yeah, that was his idol,
which you don't really see when they get out of these cars. They do say they're amazing cars. They're super fast, especially on the bends now. They have a lot of grip. The tires are wider.
Right.
The cars are a little bit longer, but I mean the emotion that you see when people step out of that MP44, it's just like, I mean, they just light up.
To give you guys a little bit of insight on how difficult it is to handle either of these cars, I'm sure all of you at home, when you drive home and you see a turn, you kind of slow down to kind of get into that turn and take it properly. In these cars, the car has to be driven faster into that corner in order to get grip, because of downforce and the tires need proper temperature and other things. So you'll find yourself going around a corner at over 100 miles an hour and having to maneuver the car properly to not hit something or take the wrong turn, or so. There's a lot of difficulty as a car driver now as there was back in the day. Obviously, there's a little bit more advancement, but to be in that seat in the best shape and with the proper mindset in order for you to, execute a turn properly or even go in a straight line in some cases is very difficult. So in no way, shape, or form is anywhere to look at this sport and be like, well, yeah, that's easy. I can do that, because you can't.
Yeah, they're super. Well, they're super aero dependent.
Yeah, definitely.
Back in the MP44 days, which was late 80s, early 90s, they weren't as aero dependent. Aerodynamics were not as advanced as they are now. I mean, if you look at the front wing of an MP44 and you look at the front wing of the new Mercedes or the new any of the new F1 cars,
right,
that will paint the picture in itself. You'll be able to see how many different elements the front wing of a new generation Formula One car has in comparison to an old car.
Definitely.
I mean, the old car was basically a wing, 2 end plates. That was it.
Yeah.
This thing's got end plates. It's got winglets. It's got. I mean, it really looks like a work of art.
It's got a sandal. They didn't have a sandal back in the day.
Yeah, they have a sandal now.
They have a sandal,
which does not give any aerodynamic efficiency to the car. But
just Google Formula One sandal, and you'll see what we're talking about.
Yes.
So we're coming down to the end, and it's definitely our But Why segment, and unfortunately, it has to do with it's with HAAS. Yes, it's the HAAS team. Kind of, they were doing well throughout the whole race, and we were literally on the edges of our seats.
Man, super excited
to see them do well. They were definitely showing Red Bull what they got. Okay, they were double teaming Red Bull, back and forth. And then they had to pit, like all of the drivers have to at some point. They had to pit, and what was it that happened?
They cross-threaded a wheel nut on the same wheel on both cars,
which disqualifies both cars from running because they cannot run well. The tire obviously vibrates, and that's something.
Which, by the way, was the reason for the virtual safety car that caused Hamilton the race.
Yes, so he's just saying that because he's still butthurt. But anyway, it's so embarrassing that the gentleman responsible on that air gun,
same guy,
the gentleman responsible on that air gun on the second time that it happened on the second car, when the cameras went to go look for him, he was not there. He was pissed. He was up in arms, literally, and just went straight for the area where the door closes in the pit. And they, it's definitely very frustrating because it was amazing. They were putting out an amazing run and showing people exactly what they got. And
I was floored.
Yeah,
I mean, the most impressive part for me is had it not been for that issue, I don't think Red Bull would have gotten past them, to be honest, in my opinion. They had such a hard time getting close to HAAS, which I was floored by that. I mean, what a show they put on for about 20, I think it was 21 laps, about a third of the race or so.
Definitely some of the, I want to say greatest racing we've seen in an opener.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, it was great. There wasn't a lot of accidents. It was pure racing. We had a couple DNFs, but I mean, all in all, great start to the season. Super excited to see. Obviously, this will never happen to HAAS again, because if you know Formula One, when things go bad, you never see it. I mean, unless you're talking about Honda, then usually they fix the issues and they move on.
By fixing the issues, we mean that gentleman that made the error is not fired.
Nah, I don't think they're gonna fire him. I think that guy will never cross-thread anything ever in his life again.
If I was the owner or even the chief out at HAAS, I would make that gentleman sit through a tutorial on how to screw on wheel nuts every race.
Dude, Gene Haas does not play around. Gene Haas, he owns the teams that have been dominating NASCAR for like, I don't know how long. I mean, he is a beast. So that guy, listen, either that guy is going to get fired or he's going to be the best guy in the pits from now on.
Like first one
No,
done.
no, he's gonna do all 4 tires like in record time. Like the guy's just gonna be like
he's gonna save Haas some money.
Yeah.
Just one guy for all 4 tires,
yeah.
setting records in the pits.
But he's gonna lose some weight because he looked like a rounder feller.
He's one of us. We are of the pudgy community.
I mean, that guy looked a little pudgier than me.
Listen, TV. You know what? You may be right because TV, and I believe he was wearing black, so it's kind of slimming.
I'll rock the pudge. I'm not worried about that. I'm just saying that guy was a lot rounder. That's not pudgy. That's Gordo.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick with pudgy just for the man. He's had a bad day already.
There's a video clip of Grosjean consoling the guy. Obviously, the Frenchman, right? Oh, come here. This is okay.
No, but I fucked up.
But I fucked up. It's okay.
It's not. I fucked up.
We have champagne. Let's go.
All right, perfect.
So he was consoling the guy. The guy was, as far as I could tell in the clip, it looked like he was in tears. Obviously, he lost the race for both drivers. So I'm sure he's emotionally distraught because everybody from the pit crew to the team principals to the catering people at these teams, to the people who set up, their huge, massive offices and everything, the people back at the factory, everyone is super competitive and super devoted to the sport.
Correct.
And each team wants their team to win. So, when somebody is directly at fault for a problem, like the software guy at Mercedes will be whoever created that software.
He is done. They
got
a new guy already.
Toto's firing that guy for sure. Which Toto Wolff is the team principal for Mercedes-AMG Petronas, and he kind of sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
These statements are being made. They're, of course, being blown up.
They do this to me.
Oh, he talks like this, and he's like, "Oh, well, we won the race, but there's a lot of races to go."
You had one job, man. These are algorithms. That's all you do all day is algorithms.
In the software, we thought we had the 12 seconds, and it was the 15 seconds. And
you can't lose the race now.
I'm going to get back in the chopper. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to kill him.
My machine gun, the chopper.
So, but... No lie, look him up. Toto Wolff, he sounds just like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And if you disagree...
And he's from Austria. That's why he sounds just like him.
And if you disagree, you have no ear for actions.
Yes.
Accents.
So, so yeah, man, what a way to... I was like, these guys are crushing it. These guys, they're gonna take like P4, P5, P6, like both cars. I was like, this is insane for the first race. And man, it was just like... At first, we thought it was they had announced that it was an engine failure. And then I was like, okay, they had an engine failure, race 1, whatever. And then one cross-threaded lug nut. And then it was like, no, it was both.
You can clearly see when...
Same guy.
When they did the left rear tire the first time, one of the gentlemen in the pits was throwing up the X. Basically, I would assume
he was saying it was unsafe release.
It was, exactly. Yeah. And then there wasn't that much frustration there. When the secondary car came in and the same thing happened, there was just utter disbelief and anger in the pit. You can see it in the video clearly where the gentleman responsible just lifted up his helmet and just was livid because it sucks. It sucks, and it sucks regardless because if you're doing it in the positions that they were in, or even in last, you're still out of the race regardless. It doesn't matter if you're in 16th.
Yeah.
But they were doing well on top of that, so it definitely adds.
Yeah, that hurts. That hurts even more.
Yeah,
if you were at the back of the pack and that happened, then okay.
Yeah.
It's bad nonetheless.
Right.
But but when you're fighting for points, both cars, you're like, oh man, that hurts. I mean, it hurts for us as fans. I can't imagine what that guy is feeling, to be honest.
No.
So, yeah, man, that pretty much wraps it up.
Super exciting.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Definitely subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a rating. Give us some commentary. Give us some feedback. Anything you guys want us to discuss, any comments. You can also check out the video form of this podcast, on YouTube.
Right.
And also on there, subscribe and leave us some comments. Let us know what you think.
Any questions you guys have or you guys want us to explain some more things, we'll be happy to respond in the comments. So
it could be
just
anything.
Let us know.
Could be anything. Could be like, if you're thinking about, hey, I want to buy this couch versus this one. What do you guys think? I mean, we're open to it.
Or if you guys want a step-by-step on how not to cross-red tread, nuts, we got that too.
Cross-red treads?
Cross-red
treads?
Jesus. This is gonna help. This is like the autocorrect here.
Yeah. Just take another drink. That'll help. That'll clear it out.
How to
Maybe that's
not cross-tread lug nuts. Yeah,
Yes.
it helps. It helps. It helps. It helps.
It does. Hey, there
Like
you
it.
go. You see?
So next time, guys, cheers.
Cheers.
Formula One.
Yes, Maranello.